Welcome into OutKick, the show. I appreciate all of you hanging out with us. This is going to be my last show before Thanksgiving. I'm about to hop a flight down to Florida to be with my friends and family down there. So I want to make sure that I say this right off the top. Thanks. 2024 has been the best year, I really do believe this, of my entire life. And I feel fortunate that I've gotten to stack a lot of those beliefs in the last several years, not just for what I do professionally, but also for personally. And I am thankful for all of you and the growth that we have seen in OutKick, the support that you have shown for all of our programs across the board, for you in the audience, for the work that everybody has put forward across the entire OutKick team. I am thankful for all of that. I am thankful very much for the election results that we just saw that so many of us worked so hard to help make possible. I also want all of you, I hope in your own lives with your friends and family, to have everything going well. I feel very thankful. I have 3 happy kids, healthy kids, a wife who tolerates me, at least so far, 20 years in, and I just feel immeasurably blessed. And I hope whatever is going on in your life that you are able to take some moments to be thankful for the fact that we live in the greatest country that's ever existed in the history of the world is an immense gratitude that I don't think I can ever possibly repay for people who made this possible. I said a little bit about this on Clay and Buck, but for those of you who don't know, my background, my grandfather, who I was named after, had an 8th grade education. Born in 1905 in Muhlenberg County, Kentucky, worked in a coal mine, came down to Nashville, where I live now, to work in a factory at DuPont. Worked his whole life in that factory. Again, 8th grade education. Never got on an airplane his entire life. Neither he nor my grandmother ever stepped foot on an airplane. I'm named after him thanks to the incredible wealth of opportunity that the United States has given me. I may buy an airplane in 2025 if my wife lets me. I'm not even kidding about this. I'm shopping for jets, okay? I don't know very many places where the opportunity can be so profound that a guy who had an 8th grade education can have a grandson who, because of the opportunities that he provided me, was able to first be born to my dad, who was able to go to college, first in the family for us, because of what my grandfather did working in a factory, to then my dad give me the opportunity to be able to go off to college, get a law degree, found a media company. And in the space of a couple of generations, we've gone from an 8th grade education Kentucky coal miner who never stepped foot on an airplane in his entire life and barely took a day off in his entire life, to me thinking about buying a friggin' jet. I mean, how amazing is that? It's the American dream, regardless of where you start, to be able to give your kids and your grandkids the opportunity to have success that, frankly, you could have never even dreamed of. And one reason that I don't try to take very much time off, and even when I'm not on air talking to all you guys, I'm working a lot. And one reason I've never had a sick day in my entire radio career, I used to joke, we would start at 5 a.m. Central. When I was hosting the show solo, I said, what happens if I'm sick? We never had a fallback. I showed up even when I felt like crap, because if my grandfather could work in a coal mine, I can sit in front of a freaking microphone and talk to you guys no matter what's going on. Now, inevitably, I'm going to get super sick and not be able to work on Monday now and do the shows, but so far it's never happened. And that's because I feel an immense sense of gratitude and personal thanks that this country exists and that it has allowed my family to, in the space of a couple of generations, go from an 8th grade education to a situation where every kid and grandkid that I'm ever going to know, I'm going to be able to pay for them to go and get whatever advanced educational achievement they could ever dream of. And I don't think there are very many countries like America where that could have happened. And I shared 2 stories on Clay and Buck, but I do think they're emblematic of the opportunity this country has and of what is there if you will just go grab it and step forward and try to take advantage of the opportunities out there instead of sitting around and whining. I was watching last night why I love sports. Lamar Jackson, the Ravens got the win. The Harbaugh brothers are coaching against each other. Ravens got the win. And Lamar Jackson works out in a T-shirt that says, "Nobody cares, work harder." I just love it. Nobody cares, work harder. I love that message. It's DBAP personified. But I've got a couple of buddies, a lot of buddies actually, who are first-generation American. Probably not going to surprise you. I went to a public school, Martin Luther King, here in Nashville. That is a magnet school. You get test scores. You come in. There's a lot of first-generation kids there, immigrant kids. Went to GW, a lot of first-generation immigrant kids there. Vanderbilt Law School, a lot of first-generation immigrant kids there. Why are first-generation immigrant kids outperforming multi-generational American kids? Because their families see opportunity and they grab it. And there were 2 recent stories that I heard from those families, buddies of mine. One of them said, his family's from India, said when his dad came to this country, went into an electronics store, you were the wealthiest person in his village if you even thought about having a television. And right there, he stood in front of these banks of television and thought, what a country. Anybody can just walk in off the street and you can have a normal job and you can buy one of these televisions and take it home to where you live. Just a little illustration. I don't think most people recognize how incredibly fortunate we are to live in the wealthiest, most successful country that has ever existed in the history of the world. But if you went outside this country and were forced to live as most of the people in the rest of the world live, you would never utter another negative word about America for the rest of your life. I really believe this. You would step off of that airplane if you had to go to much of Asia, much of Africa, much of Latin America, and live as the average person does there. You would kiss the ground beneath your feet when you stepped off that airplane because you are so wealthy, you have no idea how fortunate you are to have been born here and have the opportunity to live in America. Second part of that story, and I was laughing about this recently. One of my buddy's dads doesn't like how often his kids and his grandkids now use Uber. And he was complaining. He's like, you guys don't even know how rich you are. You've all got cars, and you've decided that it's inconvenient for you to have to drive the cars that you have bought to the restaurants or bars that you want to go to because you can't find an easy parking place and you might have to walk a little ways. Do you even know how spoiled you are? And this kind of hit me on the solar plexus because I take Ubers everywhere. That you would just be like, nah, that expensive car that I bought, I don't really want to take it out because it's not going to be convenient enough for me to go to a place where I'm going to go spend more money. That's how wealthy America is. Most people will never own a car probably in the entire world. We have decided that owning cars is too inconvenient because we can't park close enough to the place where we want to go spend more money. Just think a little bit about the perspective. Whatever your life circumstances are, if you are watching or listening to this, I guarantee you have a great deal to be profoundly grateful for. And so on this Thanksgiving, I want to thank all of you for helping me to be able to live in the space of just a couple of generations from a guy I'm named after, Clay Travis, who was an 8th grade dropout working in a Kentucky coal mine to now running a media company, getting to sit in front of a microphone and tell you exactly what I think, only in America indeed. PrizePicks, best way to get in on all the sports action over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas. I'm going to be down in Florida, going to be playing PrizePicks. A lot of you out in California, Georgia, wherever you are, Texas, listening to me are going to be doing the same. Only real money daily fantasy platform, injury insurance. So if your lineups will stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half, doesn't return, guess what? Your lineup is still live. You can still win. Make your picks in under a minute. Turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to even give you more value on your lineups. Download the app today. Use code OutKick to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5. That's code OutKick. When you play $5, you get $50. Code OutKick. PrizePicks, run your game. And I got a game you can run. These are all, Adam, make sure I'm right about this. I think these are all Thanksgiving games. This is a turkey special. For me, to you, because I am so thankful for all of you, I'm going to try to give you a 10-1 winner. All right? Free pick, free square, basically, from our good friends at PrizePicks. Use code OutKick. Tyreek Hill to have over 1/2 of a yard receiving. That is a free check mark. It's like the free square on bingo. We cannot lose. That should be a good start. All right? Then I have more for you. Jamison Williams, more than 47.5 receiving yards for the Detroit Lions, a Thanksgiving mainstay. Usually, and I know this because my wife is from Michigan, usually a Thanksgiving mainstay that actually leads to a loss because the Lions, while they get to play on Thanksgiving, historically have not been very good. But the Lions now, I think, are the best team in the NFL. I think the Lions are going to be at the Super Bowl. And I think the Lions are going to score a lot of points. So Jamison Williams, more than 47.5 receiving yards. CeeDee Lamb. I know the Cowboys are bad, but they did just get the win against Washington. Thanksgiving Day staple. Watching the Dallas Cowboys play from wherever you are fortunate enough to spend your Thanksgiving with your friends and family. More than 68.5 receiving yards. CeeDee Lamb, more than 68.5 receiving yards. And Malik Neighbors, New York Giants. You may have seen him go off because he wasn't targeted enough. I think Malik Neighbors, even playing with, was it Tommy DeVito, right? He's the quarterback now of the Giants. Now they've released Daniel Jones. More than 60.5 receiving yards for Malik Neighbors. I think they're going to target him after the complaints. Tyreek Hill, free square, basically. Jamison Williams, CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, 3 different receivers, all of them going more on their totals. If I am right, it is a receiver Thanksgiving spectacular. All of you get a 10-1 payout, and you will then all be, hopefully, thankful for me. That's PrizePicks. Use code OutKick. All right. By the way, as soon as I finish this show, we're going to tape early this week. We are taping early this week the Fade, me and Kelly Stewart. So we will have a gambling special for you. College football, NFL focused. That's the Fade. That is going to be up a little bit later today. No more shows for me because I'll be down in Florida Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Also, taking off from the radio show for Thanksgiving, spend with my friends and family. I will be back with all of you on Monday. By then, we will know the full scope of the college football playoff. But later this evening, we will get the college football playoff rankings, and they will set the table. There's a good Thanksgiving analogy for you. For what the proverbial 12-team playoff buffet will resemble a week from now. Here is what I expect. This is not what I would do. This is what I expect the playoff committee to do as it pertains to their rankings. You can respond and react if the guys clip and share this before we see the actual rankings come down this evening. So I suspect the top 4 are going to be completely unchanged. I think number 1 will be Oregon. Number 2 will be Ohio State. Number 3 will be Texas. Number 4 will be Penn State. This is my prediction of how the playoff rankings are going to go based on the playoff committee. 5, I think they will slide Notre Dame up. In the 6th spot, I think you will get Georgia. 7, I think you will get Tennessee. 8, I believe will be Miami. 9, I believe will be SMU. 10 will be Indiana. This is my prediction. And then I think in the 11 spot will be Boise State. Possible Boise State will be elevated higher, but I think they'll be 11. And then in the 12 spot, I think you will get Clemson. 13 will be Alabama. 14 will be Ole Miss. That is my projection basically of the top 14. We will see whether or not I nail that or not, but that is my expectation. Adam, you are in here. Does anyone watching this right now back in the Nashville studios have a substantial disagreement with those rankings as to what they think the playoff committee will do? I'm happy to hear if anybody back in the studio disagrees with that perspective, but that is my expected rankings, what things will look like. If I'm wrong, here's where I think I would be wrong. It's possible they have Tennessee behind Miami. Tennessee might be 8 or 9 even. There could be a element out there that's trying to protect Indiana, and so they refuse to drop them very far despite losing to Ohio State. I think that will be harder to justify. But that's where I would say I was wrong. If I'm wrong, Boise State could be elevated a bit. Remember, Boise State's only loss so far is to Oregon by 3 points. Given that Oregon's number 1 overall, you can argue that Boise State is undervalued if they come in at 11, which is where I anticipate them potentially coming in the college football playoff rankings. So if anybody has a strong disagreement, I'll be reacting probably live to that. I believe when that comes down, I will be in the car on the way to what I expect to be hopefully a smooth flight to Florida. Okay, a couple of other things that are out there. I am going to be on 30A for the holiday season. That is, for those of you who don't know, Florida Gulf Coast between Panama City Beach and Destin. Now, Panama City Beach to the east, Destin to the west. A lot of people tell me that I should no longer say this is the best beaches in the United States, continental United States, because it's getting too crowded. I'm sorry, it still is. I will be there. I am hoping that I'm going to meet with the family that has had a Trump 1 flag flying for 4 years now, because I would like to have a drink with them and say, well, you're definitely right now. But if you are in any way a 30A visitor, over the last 4 years, this guy has been flying his Trump 1 flag. And I think a lot of people are starting to agree with him. Because as I sit here, I told you, I talked about this quite a bit yesterday on Clay and Buck. This is the New York Times from Saturday. Saturday's New York Times. It's sometimes I don't know if it's going to be able to be seen very well, but I read the old print newspaper, and the headline here, and I think some of you are going to be able to see it, but I know the lighting is a little bit difficult. But the headline says, "Key to Trump's win. Big losses for Harris across the country." Opening paragraph. It may seem like a clear story. Donald Trump won the election by winning the most votes. He improved on his totals, adding about 2.5 million more votes than 4 years ago. But just as consequential to the outcome were Kamala Harris's losses. She earned about 7 million fewer votes compared with Biden in 2020. She failed to find new voters, I'm reading from the New York Times, in 3 of the 7 swing states and in 80% of the counties across the country. In the places where she matched or exceeded Biden's vote totals, she failed to match Mr. Trump's gains. Now, I flagged this down, And in an honest America, we would have a real discussion about what happened in this election and what it represents in terms of, were those votes actually all honest and indisputably real? I want you to think about this for a minute. I don't have the numbers directly in front of me, so I'm going to do this off the top of my head. Unless I can find it here, and I don't know where I did with it. Oh, maybe here it is. I do have it. All right. So I'm reading from this. Kamala now is going to end up with 7 million fewer voters than Trump did. Here is the data. I went back and I looked at a bunch of different elections over the last 16 years or so to see what the numbers reflected. Let me just share some of these. This would be a good graphic if somebody could make a graphic. I don't know how to make graphics, but this would, you're going to have to listen to the numbers. It'd be easy if it were on the screen. In 2008, which is the biggest win by either party in the 21st century, Barack Obama got 69.5 million votes to John McCain's 59.9 million votes. So Obama won by about 10 million votes in 2008 over John McCain. I voted for Barack Obama in 2008. 2012, and Adam, if you'll make sure these numbers are correct, but I've been using them for a couple of days now. I'm pretty sure they are. Obama dropped to 65.9 million votes. So he came down. Mitt Romney got 60.9 million votes. 2016, the first year Trump was on the ballot, he got 62.9 million votes, 2 million more than Mitt Romney. Hillary got basically the same number as Barack Obama in 2016, 65.8 million. So Trump, 62.9 million. And if you look at 2008, 2012, 2016, Democrats got 69.5 million, 65.9, and 65.8 million votes. So the high water mark, Barack Obama, 2008, to be fair, population increases, all those things. Trump got 62.9 million votes, won the election. In 2020, Trump got 74 million votes, the most votes that any sitting president had ever gotten to that point. And he lost because Joe Biden suddenly got 81 million votes. Joe Biden got 15 million to 16 million more votes than Hillary Clinton. He got about 12 million more votes than Barack Obama got. Now, the 81 million number I always found like just like an eyebrow. But they made the argument, Trump was uniquely unpopular. It wasn't that people showed up to vote for Joe Biden. They showed up to vote against Donald Trump. So why did Kamala, if Trump was such a threat, in the wake of Jan 6th and all the lawfare and everything else, Kamala got 7 million fewer votes than Joe Biden? Trump got 77 million votes roughly right now in 2024. That is about 14 million more votes than he got when he ran for president in 2016. And his number went up about 2.5 million, 3 million off of 2020. It was a very similar number. Now that we've had Trump on the ballot 3 times, doesn't the Joe Biden 81 million votes stand out even more than it did before? Isn't that a eye-raising, maybe a eyebrow-raising number? To me, it is. What would explain this other than, I don't think that Biden's insanely popular. Nobody's arguing that. I don't think that, based on this result, Trump is so hateable that 7 million people decided after Jan 6th that they're not going to show up. There's only 2 options, I think. One is, and this would be the legal option, Democrats vote harvested at a level never before seen due to COVID, and were able to use the existing voting laws that favored mail-in ballots and absentees and everything else on a level we've never seen before, that they were unable to replicate 4 years later. That is the only legal option. Or the second option is they blatantly cheated. I asked this question on Twitter, and you guys overwhelmingly voted that now that we have 3 different elections involving Trump that we can analyze, that you believe that there was overwhelming cheating that went on by like a 92-8 margin, with over 30,000 votes having been cast on Twitter. Now, some people out there are like, you're not allowed to election deny. Why not? The entire purpose of the First Amendment is to be able to argue as loudly as you possibly want for any perspective that's out there. If you think that Biden, and I opened up the phones yesterday for 3 hours, if you think that Biden legitimately got 81 million votes, argue it. If you think Democrats used COVID to harvest votes on a level we've never seen before, argue it. If you think that Democrats cheated, argue it. I think there's a big argument here, given that Kamala lost 7 million voters. Are you really telling me that they hated Trump so much that they showed up in record numbers to vote for a very bland candidate in Joe Biden, but they wouldn't do it again for Kamala Harris? Again, it's just kind of staggering that Joe Biden would suddenly get from Hillary 65.8 million to Biden 81.2 million votes. And that suddenly, even according to the New York Times, basically, this, I don't know if you can zoom in on this, Kamala received 7.1 million fewer votes. Basically, all over the country, people voted against Kamala. And I think, at a minimum, it's important to discuss what we've seen happen. Because I wrote a lot about this in this book. I'd encourage you to go read it, because I think I got a lot right, humbly, as always. Sometimes you don't notice progress. I did this in my career. I would show up and I would work so hard at building an audience from nothing when I founded OutKick in 2011. And I would bust my ass and I would put out so many different articles, and I would do live radio and I'd do interviews all over the country. And it's just hard to measure on a day-to-day basis what the overall trend lines are. Well, now OutKick is huge. You know, we're one of the biggest websites out there that does sports, pop culture, politics, all those things. Audience is huge. Millions of you are listening on radio or watching video or reading the site every single day. Because I was pretty good working hard every day for like a decade. And that's honestly, I think, the only way you can really have success. And honestly, I've been doing it for 2 decades. There's a lot of people now that can have overnight success on TikTok, for instance, or Instagram models or whatever else. That's not what I know. I know show up, work hard for years at a time, and then when you look up, you can kind of see some progress happening. I think that's what's happened with the overall electorate. Republican gains since 2012. Black voters, Republicans plus 19. Hispanic voters, Republicans plus 29. Asian voters, Republicans plus 17. White with no college degree, Republicans plus 13. Age 18 to 29, Republicans plus 14. 30 to 44, Republicans plus 8. 45 to 64, Republicans plus 8. Pretty good days lead to eventually massive wins. It's true in sports. If you can string together a lot of pretty good practices, eventually you're going to have a breakthrough result. And I think what we saw in 2024 is a breakthrough result. And I want to finish today's show in advance of Thanksgiving by not only saying that I'm thankful for all of you, but that what we're seeing at OutKick and many different media companies out there is a seismic change in the impact and influence of media today. And I think why you're seeing so much panic from the Washington Post, New York Times, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN. I saw the other day where in the most recent weeks, Fox News has 73% of all news viewership on cable. 73%. 14%, I think it was, for like MSNBC, 13% for CNN. Their audiences have all vanished. Why? Because over time, you may not agree with me. You may not agree with everybody at OutKick, but you do appreciate the fact that we're going to try to our best of our ability to be honest with you. And so as I finish this show today, in advance of Thanksgiving, I have tremendous thanks and gratitude for so many things out there. But I want to close with something that should have gotten a lot of attention that you may not have heard from anybody else. The 2024 election, which just finished, won thankfully by Donald J. Trump, was the least racially polarized election in 50 years in the United States. That is, people from all variety of background, black, white, Asian, and Hispanic, voted in a least and less racially divisive manner than in any election we've had going all the way back to 1964. To basically a pre-civil rights America voting. Now, look, you can vote Republican. You can vote Democrat. You can vote independent. You cannot even vote at all. One of the things I'm proud of, 5 different people told the story on the radio show today of voting for the very first time, not young people, high 30s, 40s, 50s, 60, never voted before. They came out and they voted Trump. Different racial backgrounds. America is the greatest country that has ever existed. And I am incredibly thankful that black, white, Asian, and Hispanic, all different backgrounds, people are coming together on the idea that America is truly great, that we can make it even greater, and that we will all be able to create a better country for our kids and our grandkids than the one that we have all been fortunate enough to grow up in. I believe it. I'm thankful for it. I've seen it in my own life, from an 8th grade dropout grandpa who never got on an airplane to his grandson potentially deciding to buy his own airplane, all thanks to the glory of this great country. Amen. I'm thankful. Love all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I am Clay Travis. This has been OutKick the Show. I'll see all of you guys again on Monday. Have great Thanksgivings with your friends and family. Oh, and by the way, don't lose friends or family relationships over how people voted. 64% of you said you're going to sit down for a Thanksgiving dinner with somebody who has a different political vote in the presidential election you believe than how you voted. If, however, you do decide to talk about politics, I would encourage all of you to say, hey, you know what? I like this guy, Clay Travis. I like this site, OutKick. One of the reasons I voted the way that I did is because I like them. I think you'll like them too. Number one way we have grown, word of mouth. Never paid for an ad in my entire life. I started with an audience of 0. Last month, ComScore said I think we had 10 million people on the site. That's low, but that's what they said. That's because of you guys. I'm thankful for you. Thanks again. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I will see you Monday. And now I'm going to record the fade with Kelly Stewart and hopefully make you guys a lot of money in gambling. Let's go get some wins. Enjoy the football. Enjoy the family. And thank you for supporting OutKick.